So yes, hi guys. Today I'm going to give my fifth demonstration video. Okay, it's my demo 5. It's my fifth demo. So here in this demo, I'm going to give you a topic, or I'm going to give you the demonstration on the concept called model mapping. Okay. Yeah, model mapping. So what exactly is model mapping? So usually in whenever we go for building any application, so we have to follow some standards like standards in the sense so a layered application is a must and should. Okay. Layered application which will include a controller. Okay, which will include a controller. So controller is one layer and Pojo will be the one layer which will take users request. And yes, so we do also have a so we have a controller Pojo and we have a DTO. DTO in the sense a data transfer object layer, so which will convert this Pojo uh, to other object. Okay, similar kind of object. And yes, if we also have a service layer, so in this service layer, better we can go with the interfaces, which we can expose interface. And yes, there is one more class that implements interfaces. Okay. So whenever we are writing the code, so we have to take the reference of the interface because we may have different methods available or implemented or wrote that are not a part of interfaces in the implementation class. So why we should expose those methods also to the client or the requester. So that's why better we can go with interfaces so that only whatever the methods we have declared in that interfaces, that methods only visible to the requester or the calling method. Okay, that's why we have to follow this kind of structure as well. And yes, we have a DAO layer which will interact with so DB. And yes, we may have an exception layer, or we can call it as an error layer. Okay, whatever the layers we want to wish, then we can go with that. So let me open a paintbrush so that it will be clear while looking at that in a pictorial representation. So the thing is here. Okay, let me make it somehow simple. Okay. So this is something like this one we can call it as a client. So this is the client. Okay, or the invoker or the requester. So we can call it as a client or e-commerce kind of thing. So the thing is, this particular thing is going to request something from our application. We can consider this as our application, and let me name it as okay. Now this project. Let me give something. Okay. Let name it as this is something like payment application. Okay. So this we can call it as our payment application. And here in this payment application, we have like we discussed it, right? We have some lot of different layers. Just assume that this is a single project, and it will have usually we have a controller layer. Let me name it as a controller. This is a controller, and obviously controller is going to interact with the service layer. Okay, this is the this is how the interaction between different layers will happen. Okay, this will talk with the service, and here in the service we are going to expose only interface reference. Okay, this we can call it as a service layer, and there is something called a DB. Okay, because if we want to use enterprise related application, definitely we have to store the data coming from the requester, and we have to store it in a DB, right? DB. Usually it should be Oracle, or we can go with the MySQL, whatever it is. It's completely depending upon the project requirements given by the PO. Okay. So here the thing is, so the controller will, the process is something like we have to follow a chaining process. Okay. The thing is, we are directly want to go and call this DB layer from controller. This is completely not a recommended or not a good process to follow. Okay. This we are not supposed to, the controller layer will not directly call DB layer. Okay. This is not a good practice and not a standard way to follow coding. Okay. Rather, let me close this. Rather, controller layer will talk to service. Okay. Let me take this line. Okay. Controller layer will talk to service. What is happening? Yeah, controller layer will talk to service, and if there is any DB related activities there, then service will interact with the DB, and same in response also these things will occur. So here there is one thing called, so whatever the request passed by the controller or the requester, the controller initially will call the service, and here we have something called, this is a POJO layer which will take the request from the user or going to receive the request. This is something like a POJO. It's a plain old Java object that will keep the user's request. And here we are not directly we are not directly expose this POJO layer to DB, because there might be some security issues, because directly the request is coming and we are taking that request, and directly that request we are putting it in our DB. So there might be a lot of high risk security issues might become. So in order to resolve that particular issues, what this service is going to do? So service initially will take up this, will put a request in this POJO class, and there is one more layer called DTO. Okay, DTO in the sense data transfer object. That means this particular, so service is going to convert this POJO into, let me give a name to this. This is something called a DTO. Okay, in this DTO, we can create one more class that is going to hold this data. Okay. And yes, similarly, this DTO is also not directly going to interact with the DB. So rather, there is one more class or one more layer called EAO layer. So we can call this as entity, because in DB terms, we can call this particular class or object as an entity. So this DTO will be converted into entity object, and yes, entity will interact with this DB. And same in response, let me this, yeah, same in response also, this DB will give the response to entity, and yes, this, yeah, and this entity will give response, or entity will be converted to DTO with its proper response, and same DTO will convert to POJO with its response, and yes, the same POJO will be returned to the service layer, and we are going to process this POJO or the response from service layer and giving it or returning it back to controller layer. Same, we are going to give the response to the invoker or the client in that particular way. So the thing is, directly we won't go with the POJO that interact with the entity or the DB layer. So rather we can follow some step-by-step process. So initially the service will call POJO, and we are converting that POJO layer to DTO layer and DTO layer to entity layer. And same in response, after few DB operations, the DB will give the object to entity will convert it to DTO, DTO to POJO. So all these things will be a standard way of doing or building an application, because it might have some security, there might be some security issues while we directly dealing with the POJO classes. So that's why we can go with this approach. So let's code it lively. So I'm going to take a sample project. Oh yeah, let me give it as a Spring initializer. So here, yeah, let me close this. Yeah, here, okay, where should I hide this? Okay, let it keep it as this. So this is something like a demo how we can go with converting that Pojo to DTO, DTO to entity. So just for a sample purpose, I'm going to show you how this thing will work. So here our project should be a Maven build because the tool I'm going to use is a Maven. So language was Java and the version, so it was auto picking 3.3.3 and group ID. This is something. And for artifact, I have given the name as a model mapping. You can go with whatever you wish. And packaging one should be a jar, and 17 is the Java version installed in my PC. And definitely right now we are going to do the coding with a REST related word. So that's why Spring Web is the dependency that we have to take, and I'm going to use the Spring Dev Tools. So these dev tools will allow us, because each time whenever we made any changes to the application and any coding minor changes to or the layer or any of the class or any of the interfaces, definitely we have to stop the server and we have to reload it. So in order to avoid that scenario, the Spring dev tools will help us. Okay, and definitely Lombok is something like we can able to avoid some boilerplate code. Okay, so I have generated it. Okay, let me show you that. So this is something that we have created so far. Let's unzip it. I'm going to extracting it. Extract. Okay, the file got extracted. Let me take up this copy. Is it how to move this? Okay, let me copy this path or this. Copy it. Yeah, I'm going to copy this. So STS is something like Spring Toolsuit. I'm going to use as an IDE. Okay. So here we have to go to the file section, click on import. So this is something like Maven, right? So I have selected Maven. In that Maven, we are going with the existing project. So I'm clicking on the next. Now paste whatever the path you have selected. And yeah, better you can go with that, giving this name here. Let me copy this name. Copy in the advanced section. You can mention this particular name, and yes, click on finish. So it is going to do some building operations because we have had a lot of dependencies, right? So Spring is going to take all those things from the repositories from the internet, and it will keep them all in something like a cache memory from the Spring. So that we can able to do a ready-made work with whatever the dependencies we have added, right? Okay. So let it load. Seems to be, yeah, things got done. And yes, before starting with any coding, better we can go with the cleaning process. Okay, Maven build. So clean package, click on run. Okay, okay, let me check. It is recording. Yeah, it was recording. Got. So let it build. So it will take some time to build this project. So whatever the name we have given in the place of artifact, this should be coming as the end output jar. Okay, let's check whether the thing will give the same or not. It's picking up the test cases as well. So we are in the end process or in the end step. Let's see whether it is going to give us a success build or fail. Okay, let me drag this up. Yeah, it means we are ready with our building process. Okay, let me clear this. So as we discussed, we have to follow some layered process or layered approach. Okay, for that, let's create some packages. So the first one is something like definitely we have a controller package and new. And yes, we have a Pojo, right? Which will take users request. Ping dot Pojo. And yes, definitely we have a service layers, right? Dot service. See, therefore here in this service, I made one statement like better we can go with the interface concept rather exposing directly the service part, right? So we can keep those interfaces in one particular package, interfaces. And yes, one more thing is definitely that interfaces, there might be some class to implement that interfaces. Oh, I'm meeting now. Yeah, I think my screen is visible. Okay. So to pick all the interfaces in one particular place, better we can create one more package. So we can call it as because it is going to implement the interfaces. So service.impl implementation. Okay, click on finish. And yes, seems to be these things will work well. And yes, I have also mentioned one more thing. So Pozo, so whenever the controller will take the request from the client or the invoker, so that request initially will be taken by the Pojo, and we have to convert that Pojo to DTO or other name, whatever we are going to give, and that should give it to that DTO should convert to entity, and entity will interact with the DB, and same in response also, vice versa is going to follow. So as of now, we are not going with the DB part. So let me go with simple Pojo because we need to convert that Pojo to DTO, right? Just for a reference thing, I'm going to create one more package called DTO. Yeah, just for a showcasing purpose, how we are going to convert our Pojo to this DTO process. Okay, seems to be things were arranged properly. Okay, let's go with creating a Pojo. Okay. Class. Okay, here we are going with the payment. So I'm giving the name as payment class. Okay. So here we can use data at the rate data. This is from Lambo, which will avoid some writing some boilerplate code like constructors and getters and setters and some other two strings. So all these things will be included in this at the rate data. So if we have missed anything like constructor, then we can go with at the rate of no constructor args, or we can go with if we want to pass all the fields, and then we can go with all args constructor annotation as well. So as of now, at the rate of data will be good for us. So let's give some fields. So payment should have definitely anything should have an ID. So we can give it as in ID, or we can give it as payment ID. Okay, private string. So definitely payment should have a payment type. Okay, payment type. This is for a sample reference, so that's why I don't expect much. Payment type. Okay, it's a colon, not same. Okay, next private string. Definitely, payment should have the provider, right? It might be a Stripe or PayPal or whatever a UPI kind of things as well. Okay, or a Paytm kind of things. Okay, we can go with the provider, or we can call it as payment provider. Okay, and yes, definitely, whenever we are going to buy anything, then we can give some sample amount. Okay, private double amount. Control S. Yes. So our Pujo Plus was ready. Model mapping dot Pojo. Okay, so Pojo was ready. Now let's go with the interfaces because we have to do some business type of operations, right? So Better we can go with interfaces to declare some methods. And in the next step, we are going to implement all those things in a service.impl class. So let's call this as payment process. Okay. So we have created one thing called an interface called payment process. So just for sample purpose, we are going to write one method public. So here we can give the name as, let's take the swing, give the name as process payment. Payment. Okay. So this will take payment or POJO as a request, and it will do the performance. It will do a business operations accordingly. Whatever we are going to implement. Okay. Let me reference it. Control Shift O to import all these things. Okay. So yeah. So the thing is here we have mentioned one method. Now the another step is now we have to implement this particular payment process or this payment process interface, okay, to do the business operations. So let me create a class in the service.impl. So I'm going to name it as payment process IMPL because it is going to implement this payment process. Okay. So implements, we use implements keyword whenever we are going to work with the interface concepts. Okay, implements payment process. Control Shift O. Now the ID will give us an error like a default error, like we have to whenever we work with any of the abstract classes or any of the interfaces, better we have to import or you have to implement all the unimplemented methods available in the interfaces. Okay, let me click on this. So this is one method we wrote in that particular interface. Okay, so here our business logic should be so request coming. So that should be keep in Pojo. Okay, and same we have to convert Pojo to DTO as a request, and in response we will give this Pojo. No, we will convert this TTO to Pojo, and same Pojo will be redirected to our client. So this is our next step. So here we have to create one DTO class because we have to convert this Pojo to DTO, right? So same whatever the fields are available in the payment, we can go with the same process or the same fields in the DTO layer as well. Okay, let me save. So let me create one class here in this DTO layer. I'm calling it as payment DTO. Yeah, finish. Let me add the same fields. Control S. Let me arrange this. Okay. Same, we have to go with the Lombok dependency here as well. Control Shift O. So here our payment class and our DTO class is ready. Let me keep this up where it should go. Okay, going to keep it like that. Okay, let me save it. Yes, I have saved this thing. And yep, now we are going to focus on the controller layer. So let me create a class, controller class. We give it name as payment controller. And yes, okay, because we are dealing with the REST, right? We can annotate it with a REST controller. Control Shift O. And yes, we can go with the one request mapping. Request mapping, can give it a slash payments slash v1. Control Shift O to import this thing. And yes, we are going to create one method public string public string, create payment. Okay. Create payment. So definitely it is going to take payment as a request body, QUEST request body, because the thing is we are taking that request and converting that to the POJO. So that should be taken automatically. Okay, request in the request body, you can use payment POJO object with a reference, Control Shift O to import all these things. And yes, so here we have something called payment process implementation. Okay, this is a business layer. So to visible this object in the Spring container, we can go with because this is dealing with completely business logic. That's why we can annotate with at the rate of service annotation. Okay, Control Shift O. What it is showing? Shift O. Yeah. Okay. And yes, we have to take this reference to do the performance. We can go with the payment process. Domain DTO, where is our controller? If this is something like hiding me. Okay, here we can go with our controller. So let's take private payment process, IMPL. So this is something like service related, right? So I'm going to name it as service. Control Shift O to inject the dependencies, you can use auto wired annotation. So here, let's give some logger this out. So inside we are inside this payment controller class dot create payment method dot create payment method. Yes, yeah. This is a basic logger, and yes, definitely we have written something. So let's keep this as it is. So here we have to pass this request to the service layer. So in the service layer, so service is going to convert POSO to DTO, and the same in response, DTO will be response will be converted DTO, and it will come to POSO, and the POSO will be returned to this service layer. Okay. So for that service that there is a method we have created, process payment, and we are going to pass the same or request given by the invoker. Okay. So there we have mentioned that method as a string. Like same, we can follow with the string response. Okay. String response equal to, yeah, control S. And same, we can go with the control C. Let's give some name, response from, okay, let's give it as a response only. So let's paste this out, control S. So we are done with our controller. So this we are going to anyhow going with the post mapping. So let's annotate with the slash create. Control Shift O, Control S. So we are ready with this controller. So here the thing is, here we are passing this payment or whatever the request body, right? That already is going to store in a payment POJO object. So now our main concept is we have to convert this payment to one of the DTO package or DTO class. So how we are going to do this? Okay. So whatever the fields available in the POJO, same fields are available in this DTO layer as well. Okay, for that, let's go to the service layer because all the business operations we are doing in a service layer only. So here, in order to convert our POJO to DTO, so let me give some logo. So inside, so here we are inside this particular class dot this process payment method, okay. And yes, control yes, and we are going to add one more logger. So we have to find out whether our Pujo is working fine or not. Okay. So we can call this logger as, let me remove all this, before conversion, before object conversion. Okay. Conversion. Pujo. So let's take up the same, and we are going to print this on our console part to do some confirmations. Okay. And yes, here our next part is going to come. Okay. So in order to convert this Pojo to DTO, there is one, I mean, there are a lot of predefined classes available. So here right now we are going to use one particular class called as model mapping. Okay. So for that we have to take the dependency, I mean dependency from the internet. So here you can search model mapper dependency. You can take this dependency, control C, and same, let's go and add it in our form file. So this is a dependency is a section. Okay, so it's a bit slow. Let me take. Okay, yeah, we are in the form file. So here in the dependency sections, we have it is going to take up the dependency as well. And yes, obviously, so we have to configure it in our internal configuration file, and we can use dependency injection whenever. We can call it as a package. We can name it as .config. Okay, so here in this config, not in the controller, here in the config, we are going to create one class that is going to hold a bean model mapper. Okay, you can name it as app config. Okay, see, whenever we want to go with any new objects that we want to keep them in a Spring container, so we have to mention this particular class as at the rate of configuration control shift O. Okay, this is going to find out what kind of objects we are defined, okay, from external side. So here we have mentioned public model mapper get model mapper. So here it is showing a red mark. So if the dependency got successfully injected in POM file, then we can able to see this particular package. You can see here. So let's Control Shift O. So we are ready with this, and it is going to return our new same. It is going to return model mapper object, right? Control C, Control V, Control S, and yes, obviously return. Okay. So obviously this is going to be a bin. So we have to annotate it with bin so that Spring will consider it as okay. There is something object that needs to be created requested by the developer. Okay. Control Shift O, Control S. So yes, we are ready with this model mapper as well. So let's go to the service layer, and here we have to convert the things, right? So that's why take the reference model private model mapper, Control Shift O, and we want this dependency, right? So that's why we use auto wire, Control Shift O, just give some space. Okay. So let's remove these things. So here we have to convert this picture to a DTO. Okay. So let's take the reference model mapper. There is a method called, okay, let me give the name as model control S. Let me take the same name, control C, control V dot. There is a method called map which will convert this to that particular destination class. Okay. Here we want to convert this Pozo to one more class called payment DTO dot class. Control Shift O to import that DTO class. And if you don't know how to, can say if you do, we don't know how to, what should be the return type of this, then let's go with string. IDE is going to suggest us what should we take. Okay, let's leave it as a DTO. So here it is throwing an error, and yeah, it is saying that convert this to this DTO type. Okay, so now let's print one more console, one more log, whether it got successfully converted or not. Okay, can give it as after object conversion. We can call it as DTO. So same, we can give this a reference here. Copy, paste, Control S, and yes, we are going to pass this as a return object. Can give it as return. Okay, give some sample name, sample statement return from service. And yes, we can pass this object Control S. That means now we have fully ready and we are able to successfully converted that Ojo to DTO layer. So let's see whether it is going to work or not. Okay. So where is our controller? Here is our controller. So here inside this, and we have passed that and we captured that response. And yes, we are going to return the same. Okay. So let's run our application. Right click, run as. So the thing is we have touched the we touched the POM file, so better we can go with the cleaning process. So clean package, click on run. Okay, let it run. Because we have added one external dependency in the POM file, so there might be some issues maybe come. So better we can go with the building one more time. So things will work very cleanly. Okay. Okay, test cases are up. Let me drag it up. So meanwhile, we can prepare the JSON type object. Okay. So if we don't know how to go with the same, so I have used ChatGPT. Okay, it was not generated. You can simply ask ChatGPT like, give me the JSON format for whatever the fields you have mentioned in our Pojo class or entity, right? You can give the same field, so it will convert that to a JSON, and we can pass the same thing in our what we can say in our Postman application to test our APIs. Okay, so seems build got success. So let's run our application. Right click, run as, haven't built. So we can go with the clean spring colon boot, spring hyphen boot colon run. So as of now, I'm going to skip the test cases. So I'm running this. So let's wait for this. So let it build and it has to take up all the things and server should be ready. So let's see what are things will come. Yep, Spring is coming up. Let's see. So web application, yeah, Tom got server start and port 8080 and yep, application got started. So let's go to Postman. So I have already something set in a Postman. So here we are in this endpoint. It is of type post. Click on send. So I'm sending my data to data via Postman. Okay, there is something called error came, no static resource pool slash create. Let's check what is our endpoint. Slash payment given slash create control C. Okay, here we mentioned it as payments, not payment. Okay, let's click on send. Yeah, so you can see. Okay, let's see the okay. We are inside our payment controller, and payment controller we have passed a request. So here our Pojo is going to the service layer and their service layer, we have converted our poser to DTO and same. So before we have poser details like this, and after we have uh, object conversion from poser to DTO was like this. And one more thing we have to do is, so as I told, in response, we have to give same poser object only. So that means there is something we have to do. One more thing out here. Here we can. So this also we can write in service layer as well. But as of now, let's go with this. So for that we have to use model mapper for Control Shift O and Control Shift O. Let's give it as a private. And yes, we have to use this, right? For that we have to go for a dependency injection with auto void annotation. Control Shift O. Let me drag it down. So we have received our object as a DTO. So now we have to convert the DTO to the POSO. Okay. Model dot map. Okay, not model mapper. Mapper dot map. Same object source and destination. So here our source will be the DTO thing. Okay. Okay. So let's better we can go with creating the same thing in service layer. Okay. So let's remove this thing as well. Control X. Control S. Where is our service layer? Here in the service, again, need to convert this to DTO. Control Z. We have already mapper available. Okay. Model mapper dot map. Same object and object with source and destination. Okay. We have to convert this DTO to this payment type. C. Control V. V. Control S. The same. We can call something string. String. Pojo. You can call it as a. So let's go with the Bojo equal to. So let's follow IDE standards. Mouse over on this. So this is of type payment because we are converting that DTO to this Bojo, right? Control V. Model mapper dot map. What is the error type mismatch? Cannot convert from Y to payment. Okay. Model mapper dot map. We are mapping this DTO to payment. Okay. Better we can go with the naming as copy. Where is our interface, payment process? We can go with Control S. So while going with the debugging and all, so we are going to follow these kind of things. Same, we are copying Control S. So let's remove this. So here we have to return the DTO object. Control S. So this is of type DTO, right? So better we can go with the meta return type should be of for DTO type. And same we have to give in the area of interfaces. Okay. Control P, Control Shift O, Control S, same payment process service, Control S. Okay, we are ready with this. And just here in the payment controller, control. So we have to give the name as this. Control Shift O to import this particular class. Now we have to convert the DDO to Pojo. Okay, so mapper. Yeah, we have to give the model mapper. Control Shift O to import this private. So we have to go with the auto void annotation for our dependency injection. Okay. Control S. So mapper dot mapper dot map dot map per dot map. You can go with the object and source and destination thing. So we can give it as, let's call it as DTO response. So now we have to convert this to Pojo class. Okay, payment dot class. Yeah, seems like my previous due to network issues, previous thing got disconnected. Let me reshare it again. Let's go to our STS. So we are ready with our object class conversion. Let's go with one more logger. It's out to object conversion from DTO to POJ. Okay, let's create that object as well. Let's give it as a response. Control C, Control V, Control S, and same. We are providing the same response out here. So let's take this up. Yep. We are ready with our application. Let's go to Postman. Let me drag this up. Yeah, click on send. Yes, you can see we are done with this. So let's go and evaluate our logos. So we are inside a payment controller, and there we go to the service layer. In the service layer, initial POJO was this, and we converted that to DTO. And yes, in the controller layer, we have converted the DTO to POJO, and the same details we can able to see in our response as well. So this is how we do the mapping conversion using ModelMapper. Okay, yeah, this is thing. Yep. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm closing this.